do a little talk about subgroup mixing. And if you remember, subgroup mixing is a general mix technique. It has nothing to do with Pro Tools specifically. You can use it with Ableton Live, you can use it with Logic, you can use it if you're just mixing for live stuff, if you're using a board. It's what you're going to use for all sorts of stuff. Subgroup mixing is one of the most important techniques that you can learn. It will save you all sorts of time. It'll end up therefore it'll make you some money, all this kind of stuff. Subgroup mixing is so important. I can't stress enough how important subgroup mixing is. So let's go ahead and take a minute to talk about subgroup mixing. And subgroup mixing, what it does is it allows you to mix, to group similar instruments within a mix. So you've got your drums, you can put those together, you can put your basses together, you can put your guitars together, you can put your vocals together, all that stuff. Why should we learn subgroup mixing? Well, we should learn it because faster mixing equals more money. And who doesn't want more money, right? Do you not want more money? I don't think so. Okay? It makes a complex mix easier to handle. If I have 100 tracks with subgroup mixing, I can bring that down so I just have like 5 tracks or even 2 tracks. Isn't that much easier than 100 tracks? Yes, it is. If I want to apply effects to groups of instruments. So far we've just been talking about putting effects on the kick drum or effects on the snare drum. But what if I want to apply effect to all my drums together? First of all, why would I do that? Second of all, how do I do that? Well, this is where subgroup mixing comes in. All right, in order to talk about this, let's talk about that whole effect thing. Why would we put effects on groups of instruments? Why not just add effects just to the kick drum all the time or just to the snare drum? Or if I have things subgrouped together, if I'm putting effects on everything, why would I then want to put an effect on just the kick drum or just the snare drum? Well, this brings us to my point here that a mix is like a hamburger. I enjoy cooking a whole lot. I also enjoy eating a whole lot. Well, if I enjoy cooking and eating a whole lot, I'm going to equate a lot of things with that in my life, and mixing is one of them. Making music and mixing really is like very similar to cooking for me. It feels like cooking. I think about it like cooking. I equate them together. And so let's go ahead and talk about this. Boom, there is a hamburger for y'all. Oh my goodness, doesn't that look amazing? Look at that. Oh, let's just zoom in on, oh yeah, oh, yummy. Oh, that juicy meat and cheese and pickles and tomatoes and actually, I hate pickles and tomatoes, but whatever. We got some jalapenos in there. You got some bacon in there. All those poor smart pigs are dying so you can be happy with your mouth. Ugh, gross. Anyway, I actually don't eat pig anymore. So what do we got in here? What do we got in this burger? Let's take a look at this bad boy. We have a... That's a burger. What are you talking about, Nico? Don't you recognize a burger? Well, I know you don't eat meat, but look at that. Oh, look at that burger. Oh, look at that. Just yummy. Okay, so what do we got in here? We have a sesame seed bun. We've got some bacon. We got some mayonnaise. We got some jalapenos. We got some chili. We've got some, yeah, actually crispy. I'm with you on that one. So this will either, if you eat meat, this might make you stop eating meat. We've got some cheese. We got some, what do we got? We got some onion rings. We've got some lettuce and some tomato and some peppers and some more onions and some more tomato and some more lettuce and some more meat and some more stuff in here. It is a hardcore stomachache. Actually, it's really funny because this is like a joke to me, right? This hamburger thing here is like a joke. I just put it in here just to wake you up and catch your attention. But when I was in Berlin a while back, I went to a place in Berlin that actually serves burgers. It's called like Lucy's. I feel like it was called Lucy's or something. I don't remember the name of it. I have to look it up again. But I went in there and the burgers were literally as big as my head. It's crazy. So let's keep going down here. We got some lettuce. Look at this. We got some ham. It's like a cordon bleu burger. We got some more meat and stuff like that. The death of your soul. Yeah, it pretty much will. All the animals all at one time. And look at this. Even some chicken. Just in case, cows and pigs were not enough. Now we've got some chickens in there as well. This really is, this is a burger here. Burger and a half. All right, well, let's take a look at a second and think about this and how this burger was made. every part of a hamburger must be made individually, right? So you got the meat, the bun, the cheese, the lettuce, the onions, the tomatoes, the ketchup, and the mustard, right? That's every part that's already been kind of put together. But let's take a second and just step back and think about this. If you are eating a burger like this, if you eat meat, where does that meat come from? Well, that meat comes from a cow. It's not just you go to the store and the meat is magically grown by the people in the store. They don't just have like meat farms and they grow the meat. They have actual cows, actual animals. And how that animal is raised really makes a big difference. Is the animal kept in a pen? Is the animal kept outside? Is the animal like a big fat animal? Is it a small skinny animal? What is it? You know, is it full of like hormones and science that humans have made? Or is it more of a natural thing? This stuff is really important, and it goes into your body and it tastes the it does, yeah. AJ's picking fights, and it changes the taste of it. It changes how healthy it is. It changes all this stuff, right? So when you're getting, when you're choosing the meat, realistically, if you want to start at the very beginning, you have to go out to a farm and get a cow, and you just say, I want that cow right there, and I'm going to take that cow, and you're going to get the cow, and you're going to take it in. You're going to look lovingly into its eyes, and you're going to say, baby, I'm going to kill you right now. And somebody comes up with a bolt gun or whatever, and they bolt it in the side of the head, and they kill the cow, and it dies. So this is how you do the meat. And we never think about this. We never stop and think about this part of it, but this is how it's done. So you get the meat, then you get the meat, and you defur the cow, you debone the cow, you take it, and you grind the meat up with all the little tendons and all the bits and pieces of it, and you grind it up and you get your meat there. How you grind it changes it. If you don't grind it, that changes it. That's steak, right? It's not a burger, it's steak. And then you grind it up, you make the burger, and then what do? You get that burger home, you get the meat home, and you say, I'm gonna add stuff into it. Okay, so adding stuff into it. This is the first part that we as consumers can actually control. We can select which meat we want, but we don't actually grind up the meat. We don't kill the meat. We don't kill the cows. Not anymore. We've moved way beyond that as a society. So I go to the store. I go to my local butcher, and they do all this stuff. And I say, I want this kind of a thing. Yeah, meat pushering. I don't know. Am I really selling meat right now? Or I mean, it's a pretty grim image in my head right now. But so I have a local butcher that I go to, and I get the meat from these people because it's like grass-fed, it's healthy, no non-GMO, all that stuff, no hormones, none of that stuff. And they do everything right there in the store for me. But then when I get it home, this is where I start to control the process even more. I'm going to add stuff in. What do I want to add in? Well, I have a friend who adds in the Lipton's French onion mix into his meat. It tastes amazing. Add a nice chunk of butter in there. Put some Worcester sauce in there. I like to add some cooked garlic and some cooked onions into my meat. This is all the stuff that people do. If we were in class right now, if we were in class right now, we'd have a discussion about this, and we can talk about this in the Zoom class when we get over there. But everybody has their secret to how they make the meat. That one part of it is not the hamburger. It's a big part of the burger, but it's not the burger itself. So this is like your kick drum. So you've got a kick drum, right? And the kick drum, what kind of kick are you using? Are you using a kick made of maple? Is it made of birch? What wood is it made from? What kind of drum head are you using? What kind of beater are you using? And then after that, what are you going to use? Are you going to use a compressor on there? Are you going to use an EQ? The EQ and compressor, this is like our condiments. It's like adding some onion in there. It's like adding some salt and pepper into it. It changes the flavor of the meat, but it's not the whole entire burger yet. Next, we've got the bun. Most people don't actually make their own bread. Some people do. Most people just say, I'm going to go to the store and get some bread. So they go to the store and they get some bread. Are you going to buy Wonder Bread, right? Are you going to buy, I don't even know how you make an Impossible Burger. That's like nothing but science right there, right? So are you going to buy Wonder Bread? Are you going to buy a bagel? Are you going to buy like a brioche bun? Are you going to buy one of my favorites? Super hungry. Actually, I probably could eat a burger right now. But are you going to buy one of my favorites? Is what is that? The English muffin. I love English muffins for my bread. I feel like they soak up the juice and everything like that. So There you go. Get some horchata flavor. Oh man, I didn't know they had a horchata flavor. I have to pay attention. I have to start ordering that stuff. The nut milk. Okay, so all right. So meat bun, the cheese. I've met like a handful of people who actually make cheese. Cheese is one of those things that, people love. I love cheese, but most people don't actually make cheese. But cheese takes months to make, or years. It takes a long time to make cheese. And how you make that cheese really matters. So when you go to the cheese store, I live right next to Murray's Cheese here in Greenwich Village, and I go in there and I select my cheeses very carefully. I'm a huge cheese nerd. Lettuce. How do you make lettuce? Well, you got to find a place where you can grow lettuce, where the temperature is right to grow lettuce. You got to find the right time of year, and you got to grow it up, and you got to take care of it and make sure it grows, and then you got to pick it, and you got to clean it. Onions, same thing. Tomatoes, same thing. Ketchup. What is ketchup? People will be like, oh, it's tomatoes. No, it's not. It's sugar. Ketchup it's like almost pure sugar and like some tomatoes and like some red. It's like ketchup is like sugar and red. And it's not even sugar, it's corn syrup. It's even grosser than sugar. Mustard, what does mustard come from? Mustard comes from mustard seeds. It's from a plant, the seeds of a plant. You grind it up with some water and a little bit of other stuff. And there you go, you got your mustard. So these things are super important, how they're made. And each individual part is really, really important. Your cheese, is it got like pepper jack cheese? Is it cheddar cheese? Is it Swiss cheese? The bun, does it have seeds on it? Does it not have seeds on it? Is it like sourdough? Is it not sourdough? Like, what is it? Lettuce, onions, what kind of onions do you buy? What kind of tomatoes do you buy? These things are all super important. And if you care about your burger, you're gonna care about each part that goes into it. I used, when I was in college, I ate cheap. I went to college and, I graduated high school in '93. So people weren't quite as on top of the health food kick as they are now back in the early '90s. So I didn't really know about all this stuff. I would just like put a burger together and be like, it's a burger. What's the big deal? I also grew up in Florida. That probably explains a lot. But now, people, especially in New York and the cities, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, the bigger cities, they care about where the food comes from. They care about what's going into their bodies a bit more. So it does make a big difference. And even if you live in the South, you're gonna barbecues, grilling out, stuff like that, drinking high C. Hey, don't knock high C. Actually, you can knock high C. I used to drink high C, but yeah, not anymore. I used to drink all kinds of stuff. My mom used to take me to McDonald's, and she loved it because I enjoyed the filet of fish sandwich because she thought that was healthy. I was getting fish in my body. The things we tell ourselves, right? Crazy. I can't believe I'm still alive. All right. So every part of a mix must be built up separately. A mix is very similar to this, okay? So drums. You have the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, and the cymbals. You got the bass, you got the keys, you got the guitar, you got the vocals. All right? We could talk about these things individually, but the whole thing is a song. So with your drums, you've got the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, the cymbals. AJ, I know you play drums. I don't remember who else plays drums. But if you own a drum kit, you probably thought about what kind of drum kit you were going to buy. You didn't just go out and buy whatever drum kit. They were just like, oh, buy this drum kit. It's great. Okay, cool. I'll buy this drum kit. What you did was you did some research. You talked to your teacher. You talk to other drummers. What kind of drums do I want? What kind of music are you playing? Oh, I'm playing this kind of music. Okay, cool. Well, you should get a drum that's this size for the kick. You should get a drum that's this size for the snare. Is your snare going to be made out of metal? Is it going to be made out of wood? What is it? Is it made out of like plastic? All this stuff is super important. Your hi-hats, your cymbals. What company do you buy? How are they made? Were they handmade? Were they machine made? All this stuff is super, super important. Once you've got the drum shells, you got to put some skins on the drums. What kind of skins are you using? What company are you using? What kind of drumsticks are you using? This stuff is super, super important. So when you're mixing it, when you're recording a song, you're not just going to be like, there's the drums, mic them, play. You're also going to choose what microphone to use. Then you're going to choose what effects you put on them. AJ says he's got a wood snare, some Zildjian cymbals. Yep. Stuff is super, super important. Okay? It's not just slapping the first thing that goes onto it. So why would you do that with a mix? Mixes are the same way. You're not going to just slap any old thing on there. You're going to pick your food carefully. You pick your drums carefully. The bass, what kind of wood is the bass made from? What kind of wood is the guitar made from? What kind of strings do you have on it? All these things are super important. Then you're going to say, what kind of amp are you going to go into? What kind of cabinet are you going to go into? With your vocals, what kind of microphone are you going to use? All this stuff. Schnazzy. Yeah. Even drumsticks, drumsticks are especially, are you going to have a wood tip? Are you going to have a nylon tip? Are you going to have a felt tip? So many options. And if you haven't paid attention to this, go to a Guitar Center and check it out and see all the different stuff that's out there. Guitar Center, Sam Ash, whatever. Or pick up a magazine, go online, watch some videos about how drums are made. It is fascinating. And if you really want to be the best mixer or the best producer you can be, you need to learn about this stuff. All this stuff matters. The size of the stick, yep. Okay, so we got through all that stuff. Now, keep in mind, just like this burger part here, all these individual parts, meat, bun, cheese, lettuce, onions, tomatoes, ketchup, mustard, it's a burger. At the end of the day, it's one unit. It's one unit. We take it, we put it in our mouth, all that stuff, right? Okay, same thing with a song. We got the drums, we got the bass, the keys, vocals, guitars, all that stuff. It's one unit though, it's a song. So even though we're looking at each individual part really, really specifically, at the end of the day, what we're really looking at is the overall song. So that's what's super important there. And this is where subgroup mixing comes in. So we got the effects on there. We got all our effects. The effects is like our spices, our salt and pepper, our cayenne pepper, all that stuff there. But then we got our subgroup mixes. And the subgroup mix is like each section that goes in here. So in this picture, what we are looking at is a song that's been recorded with microphones. Each one of these is a microphone here. You got the kick, mic 1, mic 2, got the snare, the hi-hat, the toms, floor tom, overhead, left and right. You get the bass, you get the guitar verse mic 1, the guitar verse mic 2, guitar chorus mic 1, guitar chorus mic 2. It depends on how you're recording it, but this is just something that I set up here. You get the guitar solo, the keys, the vocals, layer verse, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, the chorus, layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what we do is we say, okay, that kick drum, it has a mic inside, a mic outside to capture different parts of that drum. But at the end of the day, it's still just a kick drum. So I might put a microphone closer to the head to get the smack, but I might put a microphone further away to capture the thump. Boom, 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 right? But at the end of the day, it's one unit. It's one kick drum. So we've got the kick drum there. So now we have do we want to sound it's more like a boom, or more of a or more of a gung, or more of a psh, like that. These are all different kick drum sounds, but they're very different depending on how you want to mix between the front mic and the back mic. Okay. Once we've got that kick drum, we add in the snare drum, we add in the hi-hats, we add in the overheads. Now, instead of just being one drum that we're focused on, now we're focused on the whole kit as a whole. Now, instead of just being the boom, boom, it's a boom, boom, cap, boom, boom, cap, like that. You got the hi-hats, you got the kick, you got the snare. Now it's drums. So all this stuff here goes into the kick drum mics, go into the drum group. The toms would go into the tom group. The overheads would go into an overhead group. These are like faders. So we've got our faders here, and all these would go down here into the drum group, so we have a fader. So let's just take a second and back this up and go over here to our mix here. And I've got all my drums. I got my kick and my snare thing here. I've got my claps, all these drums here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these and we're going to put them into our drum group. So let's go ahead and look at how we do that. How we create a subgroup, we decide which tracks we want to group together. We create a new aux track. We set the outputs so they all lead to the aux input. We adjust the volume on the tracks until you're satisfied with the mix. And then you adjust the volume on the group track until it fits with the other instruments in the mix. So the first step there is decide which ones we want to group. Well, we already color coded these. They're already the right color. So okay, cool. Let's just take all these ones that are orange and group them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new aux track. You can go to track, new, stereo, aux. I'm going to give it a name, drum group. Hit create. Boom. There we go. Now the stereo aux track showed up. I'm going to get my inputs going on. So let's go to buses. Let's get bus 11 and 12. if I just need some bus to do. And I'm going to highlight all these by shift clicking, and I hold down Option and Shift, click on one of the outputs, and select bus 11 and 12. Boom. Now they're going to bus 11 and 12. Now let's just take a second here and say, you know what? Actually, I want to name these better than just bus 1 and 2, bus 3, 4, bus 5, 6, okay? So let's remember what we talked about yesterday in yesterday's lesson. Right click on it, on the bus, and rename it. This one is my reverb drums, like that. Cool. And what I always do is I always label it by the track that it's going to. So you can see these right here change to reverb drum, reverb drum, reverb drum, because they're all going to the reverb drum track here. Well, same thing with my drum group here. I'm going to right click on this bus 11 and 12 and change this to drum group, because that's the track it's all going to. Boom. And when I have a song that has 100 tracks and maybe 30 auxes, I know exactly where they're going to. All right, so our basses here. I don't have a bass group yet. Let's make a bass group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my bass here, and I like to put my groups right next to the tracks I'm grouping. You don't have to do that. You can actually put everything over at the end if you want. I'll show you that here after we're done with this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it right here, Command Shift in. I'm going to hold down Command and click right arrow and click down arrow and go here and call this one bass group. Like that, boom. So now I've got a track called bass group. Now, a slightly easier way to send all my tracks to that group so I don't have to go and rename stuff is I highlight all my basses here, and I hold Option and Shift so it applies it to my highlighted tracks, and I click on the output and I select track, and I find the track I just made, bass group, right here. Click on that. And now, see what it did? It just made a new bus and it named it bass group automatically for me. Boom. Much quicker. Let's show you that with my guitars here. So first of all, I'm going to separate my guitars out here. So I'm going to have 3 different aux tracks for my guitars. I'm going to have one for my main rhythm guitars, one for my solo guitar, and then one for all my guitars in general. So let's just see how I do that. I'm going to highlight all my acoustic guitars here, which are my rhythm guitars. I'm going to go ahead and make a new track, new aux track, stereo. I'm going to call this one acoustic guitar. And I highlight these, I hold down Option Shift, I go to whichever one I want, click on the output, go to track, and select my A guitar group here. Boom. There we are. And actually, let's call it A guitar group, so I just know exactly what it is. A guitar group. There we go. Much better. And let's get my solo guitar group here. So I'll do the same thing. I am going to make a new track, stereo. We're going to call this one solo guitar group, like that. And just send these over to the solo guitar group track that I just made. There we go. And I'm going a little bit on the quick side, but I'm trying to do it. I'm doing it repetitively, so hopefully you'll pick up on what I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing each time. Now, what I'm going to do here is I want all my guitar tracks to go into one more group track that's just for my guitars. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight, I'm going to hold down Command and click the tracks that I want to send to my guitar group, which is my acoustic guitar group, my solo guitar group, and my reverb guitar. And I'm going to Command Shift in, and I'm going to Command right and Command down, aux stereo track, and we're going to call this thing guitar group. Boom. I'm going to reselect those tracks using Command and select them, hold down Option and Shift, click on the name of the track, click on the output of one of these tracks, it doesn't matter which one, go to track, find the one I just created, which is guitar group down here, and hit go, and there we go. So now I've got my guitar group. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing with our vocals here, and I'm going to separate these vocals out into separate sections. So these vocals, I've got this verses here, I've got the bridges here, and I've got the choruses here. Now let me just show you one more shortcut for this. And you're probably going to want to go back and watch this part of the video again. later because this is going to be, it's super, super cool. And I'm going to do it 3 or 4 times so you can see me doing it repetitively. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this really cool, even shorter shortcut in Pro Tools. I'm going to highlight the tracks that I want to group together with my subgroups. And then I'm going to go to the one that's on the right-hand side. I'm going to hold down Option and Shift. That's Option and Shift. And what that does is it's going to apply the change to these 3 tracks that I've got selected. This is something we talked about all the way back in week 1 of Pro Tools. This is in the very first week of Pro Tools, that whole Option and Shift thing. It applies to the tracks you have selected. So I hold down Option and Shift. I click on the output here of the track, click on it, and see where it says New Track? Right there, New Track. Click that. Now it's gonna create a new track for me. Stereo aux, that's just because I've already done that in the past, so it's gonna come up like that. Create next to the current track, yes. I'm gonna give it a name. I'm gonna call this one verse. I'm gonna call it vocal verse group. Boom. Now what it did was it made a new aux track for me, and it automatically sent everything to that aux track. So it created a new track and it automatically set up my buses to go to that track automatically. This is very similar to how Logic works right here. Logic, you can just set your output, you can send it to a bus, and it'll just create that bus for you automatically right there. Boom, bada bing, and you don't have to do too much work. And a lot of people say to me, well, Tony, Logic is so much easier to create tracks in than Pro Tools. Well, no, it's not. You just don't know how to use Pro Tools. Sorry. All right, let's do that again. I'm going to hold down Shift, select all these bridges here, go up to the last one on the right, hold down Option and Shift, click on the output, select New Track, give it a name, vocal bridge group. Boom, there it is. There's my, and the only thing I'm not doing is I'm not holding down Command and clicking these solo buttons yet. I'm gonna do that in just a second. And then all these tracks here at the end, hold down Shift, click them, go to the last one on the right, Option Shift, click New Track, and we're gonna call this one vocal chorus group. And notice how I'm abbreviating everything. We've already discussed why I'm abbreviating everything. It's just so I can have control over my abbreviations and Pro Tools isn't like dropping weird letters out. So now I've got all these. I'm going to go back to all my aux tracks and I'm going to click the solo button. Now, if you don't want to sit here and try to find all the aux tracks, which is kind of annoying, check this out. This is really cool. I can go up here to my Track Show Hide window, click on the arrow and go Show Only Aux Tracks. Boom. Now I'm just looking at my aux tracks. All of these, I'm just going to go through and hold down Command and click the solo button for all these tracks. There we go. Nice and smooth. Looking really, really good. And we're only looking at our aux tracks right now, so everything here, we can just go ahead and solo click, solo save them. I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to view all my tracks, show all my tracks. There we go. Great. Since we are here, let's go ahead. Oh, I don't want to see these MIDI tracks. I don't need to see the MIDI tracks. That was like some stuff we were doing before. Let me just delete these out. I'll keep the MIDI track for later, but I don't need the other one. All right. Cool. So I have these here in my synths. Let's go ahead and actually put these to a subgroup as well. Hold down Shift, and I'm going to hold down Option Shift here, click on the output, and go to New Track, and we'll call this one Synth Group. There we go, boom, boom, boom. Okay, and what I'm going to do finally is I'm just going to color code these so they're all the same colors, so everything fits together. So what I do is I just grab one, make sure I've got one track selected from my group that I want to, that I'm subgrouping, and then my aux track as well. And because the reason why is because when you highlight multiple tracks, it shows you the colors of those tracks, and so now I can just see what color I've got there for example, I'm going to highlight one of my bass tracks. I'm going to select the bass track here, and I highlight my bass subgroup track, and you can see I've got the red and the green selected. I'm just going to click on that red so it changes red. Same thing with this acoustic guitar. It's kind of this purple color. And that way I don't really have to guess about what the color is. It's just going to do the right color for me. And then my guitar group here, boom, boom, boom. There we go, sweet. That looks pretty good. My synths here are the blue tracks, and then I've got my verses and my bridge. This is all vocals. And of course, these are already the same. Yep, so I'm just gonna leave those there. Now, the last thing I want to do here is make a vocal group and an instrument group. And this is the kind of final piece to this puzzle. All of these, let's go back and look at my aux tracks. All of my aux tracks, not all my aux tracks, but anything that says 1 and 2 here, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1, 2, that's my going to my main output. Well, what I want to do is I want to make 2 new subgroups, one for my instruments and one for my vocals. So I can just grab those and move right between them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make I'm going to just command click all my tracks that say 1 and 2. So my drum group, my bass group, my guitar group, my synth group, those that say 1 and 2 for my instruments, and I'm going to go ahead and hold Option and Shift and click on the output and select new track, and we're going to call this one instrument group. There we go, instrument group. Now I've got my instrument group there. I'm going to move that over to the end. I'm going to give it a different color. Let's make that one this kind of dark color here. And then same thing for my vocals. All my vocals here, I'm going to send these to a vocal group. Oops. Send these to a vocal group, this one, and this one. Hold down Option and Shift, click on the output, select new track. We're going to call this one vocal group. And that vocal group, I'm going to put that one with my instrument group. I'm going to make them the same color. There we go. Make them slightly different colors. Whoops. Okay, there we go. And now these are over here like this. So everything, if we look at this whole thing, all my tracks, I'm going to go ahead and solo out. I'm going to go ahead and, hold on, all my synth tracks here, I'm just going to go ahead and hide and make these inactive for now because we're not really using them. But everything else that's in here, this is dope. It's all going in here. So these, and you can follow along. So these, the outputs of these are going to my drum group. That's right here. The output of my basses are going to my bass group right here. The output of my guitar group, my acoustic guitar group, are going to my acoustic guitar group right here. And you can see I've got this bus 3 and 4 going on here. The bus 3 and 4 is for my guitar reverb. So let's go ahead and change this. I'm going to rename this. Right click on it, rename reverb guitar. There we go. So now everything is going to the reverb guitar, and the reverb guitar is even going to my guitar group here. And so these are all going over here to these groups over here. Why does it say bus 5 and 6? Because that was older. We did that before. Reverb vocals. Cool. All right, so now there's nothing that says bus 1 and 2 or anything like that. The reason why I don't want anything to say bus 1 and 2 is because bus 1 and 2 doesn't mean anything. It just means bus 1 and 2. But if I have everything that says it's going to the reverb vocal, well, then I look for a track that says reverb vocal. If I have something that says instrument group, well, I look for a track that says instrument group. Whatever my bus says, that's the track I'm going to be looking for in here. And if you want to just view that track, we can just view that track. Check this out. If I right click on it, watch this. If I just want to see my drum group, everything's with my drum group, I right click on the drum group assignment here and show only assignments to drum group. What that's going to do is it's going to hide anything that's not going to the drum group. Boop. So now all my other instruments are hidden, which is super great for just viewing stuff. And this is where Pro Tools really shines in terms of organization, in terms of moving around and seeing things really easily. Because if I have my track show hide group over here, I can just see just exactly what I want to be looking at. So let's say I've got my acoustic guitars. Let's say I've got my guitars, everything I want to see going to my guitars. I just right click on a guitar group, show only assignments for guitar group. There you go, boom, now it's just all my assignments for my guitar group. Well, I actually do want to see my guitars, so I can just grab all my purple ones and just show those as well. Super, super easy though. So it becomes really easy to see things out of all these selections. Becomes super easy to see what you want to look at just by clicking on this thing over here on the left-hand side or right-clicking and showing your tracks. So now when I hit go, walking up that mountainside, you said you are. Hold on, this vocal group here needs to go to my vocal group. I didn't intend to change that one, so let's go to the vocal group. Where is it? Down here at the bottom. Boop, there we go. Cool. All right, so now if my vocals sound pretty good together, walking up that mountainside, you said you are the one. Right, we already worked on that mix before, and I like the way it sounds. I don't really want to do a whole lot more to it. But if I unsolo that and I listen to everything, walking up that mountainside, they're getting a little bit lost in the instruments. So what do I do at this point? Well, do I turn up my vocals? No. I turn down my instruments. And now, because I've got everything coming to just these two tracks right here, I can just go over here and say, all right, now my mix has come down to the instruments and the vocals. What do I do to mix between those? I don't have to grab a whole 20 different faders. I just grab this one fader right here. Walking up that mountainside, you said you are. Now my vocals are louder than my instruments, and I only had to turn down one fader right here. How cool is that, right? This simplifies your mixing process so much. I know it might feel like it's a lot of work to do, but believe me, if I had to go back and adjust every single level of these instruments, it would be a huge pain every single time, because what's going to happen is you're going to be working on mixing, you're going to say, this sounds great, and then the producer is going to come in and they're going to say, I want the vocals to be louder, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, cool, no problem, and then you're going to spend 10 minutes turning the vocals down. Or if you have it like this, the producer comes in and says, I want the vocals to be louder, you're going to be like, cool. Walking up that mountainside. I can turn those instruments down as much as I want. Walking up that mountainside, you said you are the one I will follow. And I've seen your face 1,000 times, but now I see. All right, and you hear how all this all fits together. You hear all these little parts. I mean, if you're listening on headphones, you can really hear how much certain elements of this mix really pop and sound really cool. Like all that work that we did on the bass here sounds really, really neat. Let's check that out. So the bass is that ba-dum, 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 right? Listen for that when that comes in here. Let's just go ahead and I'm gonna start right here, and we're gonna move with this and just listen for that bass and how cool it sounds because of that little micro shift that I put on it. Okay, so I want my vocals here to push a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and turn down my, let's see, I'm gonna turn down my vocal chorus group. I'm gonna turn down my instruments a little bit more, and let's push the vocals a little bit. We still have a little bit of headroom here. We can push these vocals, the vocal bridge group.
saw the summer sun rising without you. I wanna see your eyes staring back at me. All the lives we're living in between, following ourselves, following our hearts.
Cool. All right, let's get to the chorus here, how that sounds.
Walking up that mountainside at dawn, you said you are the one I will follow. And I've seen your face 1,000 times, but now I see what I could not before. So much more. I wanna watch you wake up every day for the rest of your life, burning home my heart just can't contain.
Cool.
'Cause everything you are.
All right, so what we're gonna do here is let's throw in a little bit of automation in here. I feel like the second verse is probably a little bit louder recording. He was like singing a little bit more than he sang the first verse, which is fine. But what I want to do is I want to turn down the volume level on the second verse here a little bit. So we can go ahead and do that right here on the volume of the track. I could go ahead and push this one up a little bit by like a decibel or so. Or what I really recommend doing is not doing it right here on these. What I really recommend doing is inserting the multi-mono trim plugin. Remember we talked about this, and just go ahead and put it at 12 dB, and then right click on this, enable the automation for the gain, and go over here to our trim gain, boom, highlight that, and now let's push that by a decibel here, right there. And maybe this one, let's turn this one down a little bit, and this one over here, push it, maybe, I don't know, let's leave that there. Let's just see what this sounds like now.
Wanna feel your word, embrace me.
This is when having these memory locations is going to be really nice, because I can just stick this over here, and now I can just go ahead and let's check out the first one.
Wanna feel your word, embrace me.
Let's go to verse 2.
I wanna watch you wake up every day for the rest of your life, burning home my heart just can't contain. 'Cause everything you are is everything I want.
Turn that down a little bit.
I wanna feel your face pressing against mine.
Cool, that sounds good. Let's go to our chorus.
Walking up that mountainside at dawn.
Sounds good. Chorus 2, they may have just copied and pasted it over. Oh no, it looks like they sang it.
Walking up that mountainside at dawn. You said you are the one I will follow. So
No, they probably just copied and pasted that over. Let's go to the bridge over here and make sure we're level with the bridge.
do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all. Just for you. Do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all. 'Cause our love is strong. No, our love's not gone. Well, it's still right.
All right, so you notice here at the end I pushed that solo guitar just a little bit here, the solo guitar group a little bit. So, don't worry about if you're going to push things a little bit. That's okay. When I talk about relative mixing, once we've got everything in this mix going on, really, if I've just got one element, I just need to bring it up a little bit, and everything's pretty low already. Don't start stressing and being like, oh, only told me ever to turn things down. Mostly turn things down, but if you have like an element that you need to push, turn it up. Also, you can see I've turned these down a lot right here. So really what I could do is instead of turning that one down, I could go over here and grab my solo guitar and turn this up a little bit right there. Let's listen to that solo guitar. Awesome. And see here also we can view all, we can view just our drums, we can view our guitars and our bass, we can view our vocals. All this stuff here is, remember we talked about this earlier in what did we talk about that last week, I believe. So our memory locations, all that stuff, or maybe it was earlier this week. All that stuff is still there. It's still stuff to be using. Please don't forget it. I know there's a lot that you've been ingesting, but we got to go back and watch these videos. I would say go back and watch the whole session again, everything from video 1 to now, so that you can remember all the stuff we've talked about. Okay, it's really, really important stuff. So that's how to create a subgroup mix. Let's go ahead and here just look at some of the notes I've got in here. So subgroup mixing, use it in live and studio situations. You're going to also use it in live situations. Route multiple tracks through one aux channel. Group similar instruments, drums, bass, guitar, lead, rhythm, vocals. Think sectionally. Think about sections. How do different instruments fit together? Sometimes it will be obvious, sometimes it won't be obvious. Instruments to subgroup. These are your sections to think about. Drums, kick, snare, overhead, mics, bass, guitar, guitar doubles, pianos, horns, strings, vocals, doubles, ad-libs, backing vocals, all that stuff. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff in there. This is how you set it up. Aux tracks. Remember, the aux tracks are good for 3 things: send effects, subgroup mixing, and external audio input. We already talked about send effects and external audio input. This is subgroup mixing. The subgroup mixing part comes out of here, bus 1 and 2 here. Up top is for your aux track for send. This here is for subgroup mixing. Utilize the output of each track. Creating subgroups means you create a stereo aux track, name it drum group, for example, set up the input, bus 3 and 4, any unused stereo bus. Decide which tracks you want to send to the aux, all of the drums and the drum reverb. Use the track's outputs because we want to send the entire signal to bus 3 and 4 or whatever it is. Use the same buses in step 2 to send multiple tracks to the same location. Select the tracks, click the first track, then shift click the last track, hold option shift and change the output. I'm going through that fast because that's literally what we just spent the past 20 minutes doing again and again and again. Okay. Subgrouping, select the outputs of the tracks so they go to the same bus as the input of your aux track. Be sure to solo save the aux tracks. Do not use these sends. This is really important. People get this wrong all the time. They get this confused, and I will take points off for this. If you are subgrouping and you're using your sends, that means you're not subgrouping. So I'm going to take like a lot of points off for that because that's not what it is. Please know what you're doing here. Please be aware of what's actually going on here. Pro Tools mix groups versus subgroup mixing. The Pro Tools mix groups are the ones that are down here in the corner, down here in the lower left-hand corner. These are your mix groups. These are mix and edit groups. These have to do with if I grab one fader in here and I can move it up and down. Oops, turn on my drums. There we go. I can move it up and down like that. That's a mix group. If I go over here and I can highlight everything, that's an edit group, right? Mix and edit groups. That's a Pro Tools thing. That's not in Logic. That's not in Ableton Live. But the subgroup mixing is Ableton Live, Logic, SSL, Neve, Audient, O2R. Like that's all. They all have subgroup mixing. All channels become one. Any effect applied to the subgroup channel affects everything, but you still have the option to deal with the channels separately. It is important to understand when an effect should be applied to an individual channel versus a group of channels. One is not a replacement for the other. Remember our hamburger. If I put salt and pepper in my meat, that's like putting a compression or an EQ on the kick drum. That's me changing the sound of my kick or changing the flavor of the meat itself. But if I put ketchup and mustard on the burger itself, that's not changing just the meat. If I take out the meat and eat the meat by itself with no ketchup and mustard, it's going to taste different than if I put the meat into the burger and I apply ketchup and mustard to the burger. That's going to taste different. If I take my kick drum and I put an EQ and a compressor on just the kick drum, but then I also send that kick drum to the drum group bus and I put an EQ and a compression on that, it's going to sound different because that EQ and compressor is going to be affecting and being affected by all of the instruments in the drum group. Whereas just on the kick, it's not being affected by the snare drum. If it's just on the kick drum, it's just on the kick drum. It doesn't matter what the snare drum is doing. It's just changing the sound of the kick. But if I put it on the drum group, that snare drum, that hi-hat, that kick, they're all affecting each other. They're all combined. And you want that. You want that to happen. So let's go ahead and just take a look at that. That's what we're looking at right here. Compression, EQ, distortion, and I have my compression and EQ here. The blue effects only change the individual instruments. So these effects right here, the compression, EQ, and distortion, only affect these individual instruments, whereas the red effects, the red inserts affect everything. So these here affect all the drums itself. And actually, this track that we're listening to, let me go ahead and play the track we did yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and let's open up our track from yesterday, the effect chain signal flow. And let's tie this back into our lesson from yesterday. And if you're watching this in the future, then I am talking about my video that is 08/18/2020, which talks about effect, what is it? Effect chains, okay? So Pro Tools effect chain signal flow. Okay, so if we look in here, I have all these drums in here. Let's go ahead and let's see. I've got my drum group here, and all my drums are going to instrument groups and natural, all this stuff here. So let's go in here and get my vocal groups. We grouped all these together already yesterday. I got my instrument group. I got my, so let me mute. All right. I'm going to go ahead and let's me pull up my, let's just do the verse. So let's mute this. I'm going to mute these. Okay. So there's this. So here's what the natural sound sounds like, and you can hear I've got kicks, I've got compression and stuff. So let's just solo out these bass drums here. Just go ahead and turn off my drum group here. So, oops. Here's my kicks. So let's listen to that kick drum without the compression on the kick drum itself. There it is. There's what it sounds like natural. You hear how that sounds? I'm just going to turn this up so you can hear it easily. Whatever. Let's put this compressor back on. Now it's got some funkiness to it. It's got a little bit of distortion, a little bit crunchy. It's got some length to it. It's some sustain in there. Okay. Now the EQ on this kick drum is a lot more subtle. You can't really hear it very much, just a little bit of, just to bring out a little bit of flavor to it. But now I've got these two things here. So this would be like if we're miking up a drum kit, this would be like one mic on the front, one mic on the back. And what I'm doing is I can balance between these two. And over here, I have my effects on the drum group. So I've got my effect on the long kick, which is the compressor. I've got my effect on the short kick, which is my EQ. Now I've got effects on the drum group as a whole, this bass drum group. Right, there it is with no effects. Let's put this compressor back on it. There you go, there's that one. And let's also put the decapitator on here. Hear how much that changes the sound up, right? And that's on the sound as a whole. That's on the whole entire kick sound, which includes those two separate kick drums. So this is a really important part of your life here. So let's get that. So let's go ahead, and I've got different effects. Like I've got an effect on my snare drum. Hear how different that sounds? Now it's got some meat to it. Listen to that sound there. No EQ. Just a little bit brighter with the EQ in there. Yep, yeah, we're boosting up a little bit here in the, you know, whatever that is, 2K range. Cool. All right, so now what we've got here is on our main drum group here, the drums natural group, we don't have any, there's no effects on here. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to how I was doing it before because I kind of liked it a little bit before. And I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this this bus here. I'm going to rename it to drum bus. And I'm going to pick up the inputs of all these from the drum bus. So I'm going to go to bus, drum bus. There we are, drum bus. And so they're all catching the feed from the same place. I'm going to turn them down over here. And now let's listen to these. So I'm going to pull this one up. And let's get this drum loop here. I'm gonna mute this so we're just listening to my electronic drums here. You hear how much pop there is on these, right? Remember this from yesterday? Let's put the natural drums back in. Right? Sounds good. And now let's pull this here. Let's mute these, and so we can hear just our distortion. Now what we may want to do, let's go ahead and put this high cut in here as well. Right here, that sounds nice. Change up the sound a little bit. And now what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of compression on the drum bus as a whole, and a good compression for that would be like an SSL kind of emulation. And that's if you have native instruments, the solid bus comp here. And we'll just do drum bus. Let's do drum bus like this, and no dry. Yeah. Cool. There we go. Pull that threshold up just a little bit. I'm going to put the makeup down to 0. All right. Awesome. And now we want to mix that together with our vocals. We got our vocals here. And I didn't color code these the same way I did the other one because we were just kind of moving quick. But let's go ahead and...
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. My cat wakes up.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and just listen to the...
My cat wakes up every morning. He gets out of bed. He goes and he gets a drink of water. Then he smacks my head. Funko is the man. Funko is the man. Funko is the man. He's a little furry man. Funko is the man. Funko is the man. Funko is the man. He's a little furry man.
All right, there we go. Cool, so we got a nice little mix there, and we are good to go. Using the same techniques we talked about earlier today, and it's just kind of explaining how those work. You can see here all of my vocals are all going into my vocal group, and you can see that we've actually got a whole bunch of things happening here, but really there's not that much instrumentation. It's all just moving things around, putting some effects on it, and really making things kind of sparkle there. All right, and that stuff is all just reflected in here. We have a drum group, we got a reverb. Now, some people have asked me in the past the level of, if you put the reverb inside the drum group or outside the drum group, and that really is kind of up to you. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, I've got my drum reverb right here. Let's put the drum reverb inside and outside of that drum group. So now let's go ahead and send it to the instrument group. So the reverb will be outside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and mute my vocals here. And the reverb, you can't really hear it because it's not, if I turn it up, you can hear it, but it's not part of that compression that we're putting on the drum bus. It's not part of that super loud compression. So let's go ahead and run it into our drum group here. Oh wait, wrong place. Put it into the drum bus. I still couldn't hear it there. I was like, why can't I hear it? There we go. Now we should be able to hear it better. Yeah. Now you should be able to hear it, or at least I can hear it on the 2 and the 4 with the clap and the snare a little bit more. The reason why is because those are being super over compressed by this G-bus compression here on this comp track, and they're part of that, and so we're hearing it a little bit more, but it's coming in and out there a little bit, and I kind of like this. I might even turn it down a little bit, but I like the way it's being affected by everything. It's kind of holding it together, it's breathing a little bit, which I kind of like. It's not a very natural sound necessarily, but it's I like the sound. And this is a good thing to kind of keep in mind, is that you're not always 100% looking for natural. Sometimes you're looking for unnatural. That's okay. Remember, it's your mix. You could do what you want. Obviously, it's got to sound good, or or not. It's got to sound good. If it doesn't sound good, you're not going to get paid. But people are doing weird stuff. Like look at Skrillex, for example, and that whole dubstep movement was like these super smacky drums that kind of came from electro house back in like 2008 to 2010. They had this super punchy sound. It's not a natural sound. It doesn't, like, mix engineers who do natural sounds would be like, oh my God, that's like way over compressed. Yes, that's the point. The point was that it was way over compressed. So don't let it be like somebody to tell you can't do this or you can't do that. If you start a whole movement around it, you can do whatever you want as long as you're making money, or as long as you're happy. If you're not even trying to make money, if you just have unlimited amounts of money and you're just doing this because you just want to do it and have fun, then have fun and do it. And don't let anybody tell you that it's good or bad. Just be like, this is what I want to do and I'm doing it. But if you want to make money, if you're doing this as a career, then you do need to be aware of what the trends are in the industry, or be a trendsetter yourself. So that's what happens there when we change this around. And I just wanted to show you this here. This one here, the reverb is outside of the group. The level of the reverb is not affected by the subgroup or the effects in here. Use this setup if you want to heavily compress the drums but want a more natural reverb sound. And now we put the reverb into the compression, into the drum group here where it's being affected by the compression. Now the reverb is part of the drum group, so the reverb level is affected by the subgroup mix. The setup is fine for natural sounding drums that you don't plan to over compress. Or if you want that compressed, super compressed reverb sound, go ahead and use this one as well. It's up to you, really up to you. All right, and with that said, we are done. So I'm gonna stop the recording right now.